Which one's more better? This one. I'll mute that one in case it plays up. Well, like Donna said, we do have a full kind of bit of different service. We have a special guest we'll kick straight off with. Many of you will know David. He's not normally here. His family's always here. The kids probably don't have to go out just yet. Let's do it after this video. But let's get Dave Collins. He's from all the way from Solomon Islands this morning. No, a while ago. Come up, Dave. And we're going to hear a report from our project in Noro. So David's like the big boss man of an entire Bible college. Does he look like it? I don't know what you look like. It doesn't look like me, I know that. I'll hand it straight over, mate. And
Oh, you're next, Brendan. Anyway, no. Not. See, if you come here first, then you end up in the Solomon Islands later. There's a little video I want to show you first, and then I'll talk a bit more. We'll do that first.
Every Christian is called to go. Some are called to make disciples as they go about their daily lives, where they already live. Some are called to go away from the places where they've been and make disciples in a new setting. What I find about the Solomon Island people went beyond what I saw in many other places. So I thought, this is a good place for me to go and just see how God could use me here. The goal is to raise up a people that are empowered to be missionaries where they are and overseas, wherever it is, that there might be missionaries going from everywhere to everywhere.
I'm going to talk in this. You hear me? I have an admission to make. Your pastor's name came up on my phone this last week, and I chose to ignore it. Now, some of you might do the same thing when he calls you, but in fact, that happened to me a lot when I was a pastor. I'd call people and they wouldn't answer. But it normally turns out best that you see someone's name come, I don't know, I want to talk to them. And then you think, I better talk to them. So I did that very thing. But I had a good reason, and if I could just get those slides going. I had a good reason why I didn't answer Brendan's phone call at the time. If you go to the next slide, you can see that I was with a missionary friend of mine from the Solomons, and we were in the bows of this boat, actually. That's why it's a little bit blue. It's a bit dark down there. And at that very moment, Brendan called me. And there was people around me, and this woman you see behind, she was talking out loud. And I was trying to look through the window of the boat there, looking at these fish. Anyway, I was up there on the reef. So, sometimes a call comes and you're not ready for it. And I don't know what your experience is like in life, but in a sense, we can all ignore the call. Whether we're talking about the fact that someone's just calling us up on the phone, or it's something much more important than that, the call of God on our life. But God has continued to remind me of the call he has on my life. And you can see in this next slide how this is the ministry that I've been part of, how God has led me. And this is a photo that just comes from last month when we had another bunch of students graduate from our training centre at Noro. And I've been there quite a number of years. About 10 years ago, I felt God calling me to work in the Solomon Islands and serve him there. And it's been 5 years now since I've been out on home ministries. And it's been a difficult time through that time. As some of you know, we've had the pandemic, and that made it such that I couldn't even get to the Solomon Islands for a period. I was stuck here in Australia for about 10 months, and then finally, miraculously, unlike just about every other missionary I know, I got back into the Solomon Islands. But then I was stuck there. And there I was for a year and a half. I couldn't leave because if I left, I wouldn't get back. And we had our lockdowns, just like you had here in Australia, curfews. We couldn't even go out the house at night time and all sorts of things, many challenges. But the interesting thing is that through this time that I was sort of like stuck in the Solomons, I in fact saw the most fruitful time of ministry in my whole life. And it's amazing. You can encounter great difficulty, but God works amazingly. The next photo shows you a number of people who were all baptized on the same day. And this was a youth camp that I was at, just a bit like what some of you were doing recently. And I was a speaker. We saw over 100 people make commitments. And towards the end of that time, all these young people got baptized. Probably the most wonderful thing for me, if you look at the next slide, these are all from my youth group at my own local church, all baptized one day. Just unbelievable. And yet, you know, I look at something like that and think, oh, that was great. But actually, the most wonderful thing that I've witnessed is what God has been doing in individuals' lives. People that have set themselves apart from other things and said, I'm going to follow Christ. And they've been there at the training centre over these last few years. And it's wonderful just to see how God is actually raising up a new generation of leaders, which of course we need. And you're doing a great job here doing that, I believe. But I've seen God work in people's hearts. And God is looking for what I call fat people. My old Bible college principal talked to us about this and said, I'm not talking about like weighty in a material sense, but people who are weighty in a spiritual sense. And he's looking for people who are faithful, available, teachable. People who truly trust God. It's not just a head thing, it's a heart thing. And they're really trusting in the invisible God to do the miraculous in their lives, all right? In terms of setting out on a course and saying, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'll trust God, and believing God will change them and give them what they need to be what he wants them to be. Available, making the sacrifices, saying, my life is not my own. I'm not just going to live for myself, but I'm going to set aside the time and the effort to allow God to do something in me, spend time with God, spend time serving him, and in doing that, of course, being teachable, because we all need so much more to learn. It's not about just doing things the way we've always done, but we need to find the way that works. That means we have to change for that to happen. And I've seen God do some amazing things. I just want to quickly introduce you to some of the people that he's brought along who've been there at the training centre. This young man has got a name that some of you might find familiar. He's Ray Akers. When he was born, he was named after a missionary that was there at the time, and now he's a student. I put this photo up on Facebook, and Ray and Gwen were just beside themselves. They said, oh, we prayed for this young man when he was born, and now he's a student. One of the teachers we had from Australia said, this is the most gifted biblical counsellor that I've encountered. And so this is someone that's got a lot of potential. I'll show you a photo of Louisa, and she's our youngest student that we've had, basically straight out of school, and came along and studied New Testament. And this is great just to see her willingness to grow and learn. And don't think you're too young to go and get ready to serve God. The next photo is a great photo for me. This, not me, the other one, not a great photo of me, sorry, I don't mean that. But the guy on the right, he lived right next door to the training centre. We went over and shared our faith with him, and he came to Christ. Come from a CFC background. If you know anything about that, that's a cult that's prominent in the Solomon Islands. came out of that, and then he became a student at our college. Someone right next door to the training centre. Who's living right next door here? Yeah, think about that. But anyway, that's Jeremy. He's not there anymore. His wife was a teacher, and so we sent them as missionaries to another place because she got a job as a principal in another little village. So they're over there now. This next photo of Willie, this is just before he died. And you never know what's going to happen to someone. But a number of our students are actually recovering drug addicts. There's a huge drug problem in the Solomon Islands. It might look pristine, but in many ways it's a paradise lost. And he came out of that, and then he wanted to serve God. But the issues related to his drug addiction caught up with him. And he suddenly died. And it was very sad. But the wonderful thing was he was right there with God at the end. And he was ready to meet his maker. Next one is Vivian. She's an AOG pastor. But we have some people from other churches training with us. Great preacher. Here I am taking a photo of her preaching at her own church. And it was great to see her. Next one is Jason. You see his whole family. Little boy, that little baby that's been held by his wife. His name is David Collins. This happens a little bit in the Solomons, you might have guessed. So that's the second one that's been named after me. But Jason works at the college and he also studies at the college. He's only a little fella, but he's very smart with many practical things. The next one is Horton. And you see we've got colourful things around our necks. That's because this is the day of his ordination. And one of my students, actually for the students that I've trained, 10 of those students are now ordained ministers. So that's on top of the ones that were already there. So we work with some over a period of time and seen them through their studies. The next one is Emma. Now Emma, she's the wife of the former national superintendent. But why I put her up there, even though she's only a little bit younger than me, so that doesn't make her very young, in this stage of her life, she is seeking to get equipped for ministry. And she's a fantastic preacher. She's one of the best preachers in the whole country, in the whole church over there. And she did the preaching course just recently and worked really hard. Not because she was a bad preacher, but she wanted to get better at doing that. Here's a photo of an old guy. Yeah, not the guy on the right, the other one. Actually, we're both old. We're both the same age. So he's my oldest student. So he's about 35. No, not really. He's a bit older than that. He's got grey hair. But that's Mark. And he's about to get ordained. He's in a later part of his life. He's still studying and he wants to serve God. The next photo shows you Isaiah with his family. I call him our star student. He has done 18 subjects in 2 years. He has really worked hard. And his wife's got a full-time job. He's got to get up 4 o'clock every morning and take her to work. And he's got children. But he has really exercised great integrity and made great effort. He is also a recovering drug addict. I didn't mention some of the others, but someone that has turned their life around once they hit a wall. And the last one that you see here is Richard. He's there on the right with some of his students. Sadly, some of you have heard the story of Richard, that he has a real problem with his eyes. And so he's actually on leave from the college at the moment and trying to have a bit of a break. He's struggling to find the medical attention he needs to sort out his eye problem. But that's the situation with him. But the thing is, when I show you all these photos, that's the reason why I'm there. It's not about numbers. It's not about maybe, reports saying this about how well we're doing with raising funds in the Solomons, even though that's really important, or other things, but it's people. And the goal has always been for me to reproduce myself in the lives of other people and do myself out of a job. It's a slow process, and it's not something where you're going to see great things happen in a moment. But we've been faithfully seeking to do the best we can. And I'm looking at going back for another term at least, where I can continue in the role that I've been involved, where I've been developing leaders and seeking to raise up others to replace me. And slowly but surely, I believe we are seeing that happen. There's a sense in which I believe that we all must look at how God has called us. And in Romans 11:29, we see this where Paul has been, writing many things over a number of chapters, and it's like he's coming to an end of a section where he's spelling it all out, what we need to understand, and then look at how we need to respond to that from chapter 12. And he's saying there that this call, he's specifically talking about the call on the nation of Israel, but it's really a reference to the call God has on all of our lives, that is not something that we can turn our back on and say, oh, it doesn't matter anymore. No, actually, as God calls us, that sticks with us, and he intends for us to pursue that and to act on that. And that's how I feel that I must continue with the call God's placed upon me. Some of you are aware that I was part of this church in my early 20s. And so I have a bit of a soft spot for this place, and appreciate the support that you've given me over a long period of time. Not just since I've been in the Solomons, but the encouragement that has come as I've served in Australia in different places as well. And as I've often said to people, there's different ways that you can support the ministry in terms of how you can pray, you can give, you can go. Yes, you can go. You can come and join us, maybe just for a short time, who knows? Maybe God calls you to be there for a long time. There are ways and means for that to happen. I just want to show you another slide that gives you some, you probably can't read that, but I wanted to make you aware that there are opportunities in the next 12 months for people to come up to the Solomons or go up to the Solomons for some short-term trips, maybe 2 weeks. There's a women's trip happening in October, so that might interest some of you. And then there are other sort of trips doing building and other kind of practical work too, which is open to both men and women, of course. But the thing that I want to say to all of us here, including myself, is that more important than maybe you coming and partnering with what we're doing up there in the Solomons is working out what God is calling you to do. Because that might be in the Solomons, it might be here, it might be some other place. It might involve you doing something that's different to what anyone else is doing. But I think it's important for us all to discover that, to seek God and to listen to his voice. Last time, or 2 weeks ago, I was here with Caleb preaching, and he was saying, listening to that still small voice. But, you know, it takes a bit to actually hear that sometimes. And for Elijah, it took a fair bit, and it might take you a little bit too, to put yourself or position yourself in a place where you're seeking God, praying and reading his word, and then realizing, this is what he wants me to do. Just because you don't know what it is, doesn't mean that God's not wanting to show you. And so I just want to encourage you to think that through. I just want to finish with another short video. Shorter, it's a bit longer than the other one. That just gives you some scenes from this year. And we finished a semester program last month, and you can see some scenes that come through that period, and that can give you some encouragement too. Show that.
Sounds like a place some of us could go. and it's pretty easy to organise and get to go to an awesome trip. Let's just, while we got Dave here, pray for that work. Lord, it's exciting to share and have one of our own, been part of the history of this place, serve over there in your kingdom, is growing and building over here as it is there. And we ask the blessing upon Dave as he travels around for this season and shares the word and drums up support for this next year. And we pray for protection and safety. And while he's away from that place, that there's peace and harmony and progress as well, and health for all those involved. And again, we just thank you that you're interested in the little stories of each one of those individuals, and for greater callings on people that oversee this work. And some of those people may be here today, and we invite you to show us in days to come. Amen. All right.